Something just happened when I picked up this deck. I riffled the cards once, and they didn't move the way they usually do. There was resistance. A pull, like the deck itself was heavier on one side than the other. I sat with that for a second, because that kind of resistance doesn't come from nowhere. It usually means someone, somewhere, is pushing against a situation, trying to hold a door shut that they don't even realize is already opening. Capricorn, I'm going to be honest with you. What came through in this reading feels like effort, like someone has been working quietly to slow you down, not loudly, not obviously, in the kind of way you'd only notice if you stopped and actually paid attention to how strange the last few weeks have felt. But here's what's strange. The same resistance that's been pushing against you is about to become the exact thing that clears your way. And there's a man in this reading who has no idea he's about to become part of that. Let's shuffle through this together. The first thing that comes up is you, standing somewhere you know very well. Maybe your kitchen, maybe your office, maybe just sitting on the edge of your bed. And you're holding your phone. Not scrolling, not texting anyone, just holding it. Looking at the screen without really seeing it. There's a decision sitting in front of you. Maybe it's about your job. Maybe it's about money. Maybe it's about a person. And you already know, deep down, which direction actually excites you. But you keep setting the phone down and picking it back up, like the answer is going to change. If you just wait long enough, you've built something solid already. That's not in question. You worked for the stability you have right now. And Capricorn, nobody hands you anything. You earn it. Quietly, over years most people never even see. But there's a version of your life that's bigger than the one you're currently standing in. And some part of you has known that for a while. You keep glancing toward the window like you're waiting for permission to even want more. Here's the thing though. You don't need permission. You're not being reckless by wanting expansion. You're being honest with yourself, maybe for the first time in a while. Now, I want to say this gently before we go further. What comes through in a reading like this is a general current. An energy pattern that tends to show up for a lot of Capricorns going through something similar right now. Take what actually lands for you. What makes something in your chest go quiet and say yes? That's me. And if a piece doesn't fit your life, just let it pass by. So hold on to that image of yourself at the window for a second. Because what comes next explains exactly why you've been standing there in the first place. Because underneath that decision, there's a feeling in your body you haven't said out loud to anyone. A tightness right around your chest, maybe your throat, that shows up whenever this particular topic crosses your mind. It's not panic. It's quieter than that. It's the kind of tension that lives just under the surface. The kind you've gotten so good at pushing down that most people around you have no idea. It's even there, you know something. Not in a way you could explain with facts or evidence. It's more like a low hum underneath everything, a sense that something is shifting, or that someone's intentions aren't quite what they seem on the outside. And Capricorn, you're not someone who acts on a feeling you can't prove. You want data. You want certainty before you move. So instead, you've been doing what you always do. You've been holding it together, staying composed, keeping the peace on the outside while something inside you keeps quietly asking questions in the background, over and over. Here's the honest part. That composure has cost you something. Every time you talk yourself out of trusting what your body already knows. You're teaching yourself that your own instincts don't count unless someone else validates them first. And that's a hard habit to unlearn because it looks so much like being responsible. Like being the mature one, the one who doesn't overreact to things. But that tightness in your chest isn't random. It's not anxiety without a source. It's information. Your body picked up on something long before your mind was ready to admit it out loud. So take a breath right now, wherever you're sitting. Let your shoulders drop for a second, even if just a little, because what your intuition has been quietly circling around this whole time, without ever getting a clear name, is about to come into much clearer focus. Because right now, on the surface, things actually look fine. Maybe even good. You've got a routine that works. Things at home feel settled. There might even be something worth celebrating lately. A small win, a milestone, a moment where you looked around and thought, okay, this is stable. This is what I built. And I don't want to take that away from you, Capricorn. You earned that stability. But that hum we just talked about, that thing your body already knows, it's still there underneath all of this. And here's what I need you to sit with for a moment. Sometimes the calm right before something shifts looks exactly like peace. It feels like arrival. It feels like you've finally landed somewhere solid enough to relax. But it's not always the finish line. Sometimes it's a pause, a breath in between two very different chapters. Think about it this way. You know how a house can look completely put together on the outside? Fresh paint, tidy yard, everything mowed and swept and in its place. And you'd never guess what's actually happening inside the walls. That's not a warning that something bad is coming. It's just a reminder that the version of stable you're standing in right now isn't necessarily the final version. It's a checkpoint, not a destination. So if part of you has been enjoying this quieter season, good, you needed it. You've earned every bit of rest that's come your way. But don't mistake this pause for permission to stop paying attention to that instinct we just named a moment ago. The calm and the coming change aren't in conflict with each other. They're actually happening at the same time, layered right on top of one another, quietly, without asking your permission. Keep that in mind, because what shows up next explains exactly what's been quietly building underneath all of this stillness. Oh, okay, I need to pause here for a second. There's a man who just showed up in this reading, and the energy around him is so specific I want to make sure I describe it exactly right. He's older, or at least older in energy, established. The kind of person who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore, grounded, successful in a way that came from years of steady, patient work. Not luck, not a shortcut. Someone with real resources, real influence. And here's what stopped me. This man has no idea what he's about to do for you. He's not plotting anything on your behalf. He's not sitting somewhere thinking about how to help you. He's just living his life, making his own decisions, doing what makes sense to him for his own reasons. And somewhere in the middle of him simply being himself, a door opens for you, completely by accident, completely unintentional on his part. Capricorn, this might be someone already in your life. A mentor, a boss, an older relative. Maybe even someone you haven't thought about in a while, but who's still quietly connected to how things move for you. Or it might be someone who hasn't fully entered your world yet. Someone connected to money, to business, to something financial you're currently building. Either way, his influence works in your favor without him ever meaning to make it happen. That's actually more powerful than if he were trying to help you on purpose. There's nothing to manage, nothing to convince, nothing you have to perform in order to earn his cooperation. He's simply going to do what he was always going to do, following his own path for his own reasons. And your path happens to run right through the middle of it. Keep him in mind as we keep going. He becomes important very soon, in a way you won't see coming. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to actually sit with it instead of rushing past it. Has someone been moving fast around you lately? Making decisions quickly, maybe too quickly, without checking in with you first. Sending a message that felt slightly rushed, slightly sharp, like they needed to get ahead of something before you had time to respond? Because that energy is here too. Someone acting with urgency. Someone cutting through a conversation, a plan, a relationship, with more force than the situation actually called for. And I have to ask you directly, Capricorn, have you noticed this? Or has it been happening so fast, so under the radar that you're only now realizing it as I say it out loud? Think back over the last few weeks. Was there a conversation that ended faster than it should have, that got cut short right when it started to matter? A decision that got made without your input, that maybe should have included you, that you only found out about after it was already done. A message that felt oddly clipped, oddly final, like the person was trying to close a door before you could even put your foot in it. This is the part where I ask you to be honest. With yourself, not with me. With yourself. Are you someone who tends to explain away that kind of behavior, telling yourself they were just busy, just stressed, just being efficient, just having a hard week? Or are you willing to admit that some of this urgency has felt directed at you specifically, in a way that doesn't quite sit right no matter how you try to rationalize it? You don't have to have all the answers yet. But I need you to stop explaining it away for just a moment. Because what's underneath this rush of activity matters far more than the rush itself. Here's where most people would tell you this looks like a standstill. Like you're stuck, blocked, unable to decide. Caught in the middle of two choices with no clear way forward and no good options. And on the surface, sure, that's what it looks like. You haven't reacted. You haven't confronted anyone. You haven't picked a side or made a move. But I want to flip that for you. Because I genuinely don't think this is weakness. I think this might be the smartest thing you could possibly be doing right now, even if it doesn't feel that way from the inside. Think about it. Whoever has been rushing, whoever has been moving fast and sharp around you, they're expecting a reaction. They're used to people either fighting back immediately or folding right away just to make the pressure stop. That's usually how urgency works. It forces a response out of people before they've had time to think. But you haven't given them one. You've stayed still, composed, unreadable, even when it would have been easier to react. And Capricorn, that stillness isn't confusion. It's strategy, even if you didn't consciously plan it that way. When you don't react the way someone expects you to, they lose their footing. They can't predict your next move because you haven't shown them one yet. And people who move fast usually depend on predictability from everyone around them. The person pushing hard against you right now has no idea what you're actually going to do, and that uncertainty works entirely in your favor. You holding steady, saying nothing, committing to nothing prematurely, that's what's making them nervous. Even if you can't see it from where you're standing. So instead of judging yourself for not having it all figured out, consider this. Your silence right now isn't paralysis. It's the one move nobody saw coming, and it's about to change everything that happens next. Now picture this with me for a second, because I think it explains exactly why you haven't needed to do anything at all. Somewhere, this person is sitting with their own version of events playing out in their head. Maybe they're staring at their phone too, scrolling through old messages, convincing themselves of a story that isn't quite true. Maybe they're lying awake at night, running through 5 different versions of how this all plays out, picking the one where they come out ahead, where you back down, where everything eventually goes their way, exactly like they pictured it. In their mind, they've already won. They've already decided how this ends. But here's what they can't see. They're building their entire plan on assumptions, not on what's actually true. They think they know how you'll react. They think they understand what you want, what you're afraid of, what will make you fold. And every one of those assumptions is slightly, or maybe completely, off. This is the part where their own overconfidence starts working against them. Because when someone plans around a version of you that doesn't actually exist, a version that reacts the way they expect, folds the way they expect, that plan has nowhere solid to stand on. They're so caught up imagining outcomes that feel good to them, replaying the ending they want on a loop, that they're not paying attention to what's actually happening in front of them, which is you staying steady, staying quiet, not reacting the way their imagined version of you was supposed to react at all. So while they're busy living inside a story they've written for themselves, reality keeps moving without asking for their permission. And that gap between what they believe and what's actually true, Capricorn, that gap is exactly where your opening is starting to form, wider than they realize. And this is the moment everything we've talked about starts pulling together. Because that stillness you held, the one we talked about a few minutes ago, that wasn't wasted time. It was you refusing to give someone a target to aim at. And while they stayed busy chasing a version of events that only existed in their own head, the actual space between you and what you're working toward kept opening up, quietly, without them ever noticing it was happening. This is where you move. Not with force, not with a dramatic confrontation, not with anything that looks like a fight at all. This is a clean, forward motion. The kind that happens when someone finally stops waiting for permission and just goes. You're not scrambling to catch up to anyone, and you're not proving a point to anyone either. You're pulling ahead, calmly, deliberately, because the obstacle that felt so immovable a little while ago has already lost most of its power without you having to touch it directly. And remember that man we talked about earlier. The one who has no idea he's connected to any of this, who's simply living his life the way he always does. His path and yours are about to intersect in a very real, very tangible way. Not because you chased it. Not because you convinced anyone of anything, but because you stayed steady long enough for the timing to actually line up. What he brings, stability, resources, an opening tied to money or opportunity, becomes something you're now positioned to step directly into. So Capricorn, if it's felt like you've been standing still this whole reading, I want you to understand what that stillness actually built. It built the exact conditions for a clean win. Not a chaotic one, not a lucky one, a deserved one arriving right on time. So here's what I want you to walk away with. Capricorn, you don't need to fight anyone. You don't need to prove a point, chase down an explanation, or force anything into place. The person who's been in your way is already unraveling their own plans through their own illusions. And the timing that felt so stuck is finally starting to move, bringing real prosperity closer than you think. Today, do one small thing. Just one. Write down the goal you've been sitting on. The one you keep almost mentioning out loud. And let that be your quiet commitment to actually moving toward it. If any part of this reading felt like it was speaking directly to you, tell me where. I read every comment, and I genuinely want to know what landed. Drop it below. Tap that like button if this helped you feel a little more grounded today. And stay close, because I've got more for you coming very soon.